everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our 2024 Jane Austen Tea for Literacy live stream fundraising event. We will just kind of chat a little bit here in the beginning as some of you are joining us, and get your tea ready. Maybe you've got some scones with you, whatever sort of treat you might be enjoying. We'll do a quick little introduction and then we will kick things off. I already see the numbers jumping for people joining us, so that is great to see. I will start off with a brief introduction and then I will let our guests introduce themselves. First off, my name is Melissa. I am the community manager, if you don't know who I am. We have author Heather Moll here. Heather is a Jane Austen fan fiction author, very popular in the Jane Austen fan fiction world. I know I get messages from even readers that are doing our monthly reading challenges saying that they're reading your books, which is super exciting to see that they're loving it. So Heather, do you want to give us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Like she said, my name's Heather Moll, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I have 8 Austen-related variations out there. I just came out with one in March called Rising Courage, and I like to take our favorite Austen characters and put them in new situations and maybe wring their hearts a little bit, but then give them the happy ever after that they deserve. And I'm also a big tea fan, so I'm super excited to be here today with all of you.
Awesome. And next, I don't know if you need an introduction, but we will let you introduce yourself. We have Caroline Jane Knight, the founder and chair of the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation. So Caroline, thank you for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Wouldn't have missed it. I mean, the Jane Austen Tea for Literacy is absolutely a program that is extremely close to my heart, and absolutely delighted to be here. As you said, I don't know if I need to introduce myself, but I will anyway. I'm Caroline Jane Knight, as you said. I'm the 5th great niece of Jane Austen, and the last of her nieces to grow up at Chawton House in the south of England, which I'm sure many people know, as it's now obviously a public building and known and loved by many, many people. And as you said, about it'd be 10 years. It's our 10-year birthday later in the year, in October. So 10 years ago, yes, I sort of publicly launched the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation, as you say.
I know it's very, very early for you, so
it is. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning here in Australia, so I apologise. I've also got a cold. I apologise for that. I also understand my signal isn't particularly good this morning, so I apologise for that as well. But we're here.
We are here. We have made it. So we are just going to enjoy some tea today, talk a bit about hosting a Tea for Literacy, what it is, and how you can host one yourself, and how this fundraiser is going to affect the foundation. I would love it if everyone that's joining us can let us know in the comments where you're joining us from. It's always fun to see. I love all the different states and countries and everywhere that pops up, so that's always exciting. And let us know, did you dress up for the event today? What are you drinking? What are you eating? Let's kind of see what's happening in the comment section. So Caroline, do you want to tell us what you're drinking, eating, what's going on at your place?
Well, I have to confess, because it's so early in the morning, I have to apologise. I'm actually on coffee. It's a little bit early for me. I needed a coffee, so I've got myself a cup of coffee. I've also made, which honestly are the easiest things, and they're delicious. But I made last night some of our macaroons from the Knight family recipe book, which are sort of part, they're made with whipped meringue, and then you put ground almonds through whipped meringue with some rose water, and they're delicious. They're absolutely delicious. So that's what I've got with me this morning from our Tea for Literacy.
That just sounds next level fancy with rose water. Like, it just sounds so elegant.
They're actually delicious without. They are, but the rose water just gives it. I think the rose water just gives it a flavour that you're not used to today, if you know what I mean. It just gives it a flavour that just sort of makes it, something that little bit unusual.
I love it. We've got a couple of comments coming in here. Let's see. We've got Wendy is joining us from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We have Beth from Oklahoma. We have Scarlett in Seattle. We have Laura from Denver, Colorado. And we have April in Michigan. So welcome everyone that is here. Heather, do you want to let us know what is going on at your place food-wise?
Yes. Well, I made something from the recipes too. I made the bread, and I didn't have time to make little sandwiches, but the bread is fine by itself. So don't feel like you have to make sandwiches if you run out of time like me. You can just eat the bread, and it's awesome.
I love it.
And I've got my tea.
What are you drinking? What kind of tea?
It's a Yunnan tea. It's from the Yunnan region of China. So it's a black tea. This one's called Golden Halo Yunnan. So it's very brisk. So
if you have any tea questions, Heather is the person to go to. She scolds me for steeping my tea too long. She has it down to an exact science of what is the best way to prepare your tea. I often tell her she would be ashamed at my tea making skills because sometimes it's a bad
as long as you like it, that's fine.
I think I'm just used to it at this point. It's the way that I do it.
If you're a tea making expert, do you go for the milk before the water or the milk after the water?
I don't think it really matters, honestly. I know some people have strong opinions, but it really doesn't. The porcelain, like, because some people used to think, all right, we're going to get sidetracked. So you asked me about tea, and now we're going on a tangent that you'd have to put the milk in first because the cups couldn't handle the heat of the hot water from the tea. But that's not true. It's not true. They can handle the heat. So I think it's just a pleasant discussion to have. There is no right or wrong answer. I don't put milk in my tea anyway, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But doesn't matter, guys. Do what you like. It's fine.
And I have to say, it's a question I've looked into in the past, and absolutely the answer is there is no answer. There's no scientific answer either way. There's no, and it's not. Yeah. There is no answer either way. Either way, so. As you said, I was yes, curious to see if you'd found anything other than that.
I think this is is there a clotted cream and then the jam controversy of which goes first?
Now that I do have an opinion on. Jam first in my world. Jam first.
Noted.
but that probably comes from Granny's tea room and the way that Granny used to do it at Chawton House, and we all continue those things that we learned, don't we, as a child?
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
And so just to highlight, when you host your tea, and Caroline will be sharing with us in a bit about how you can host and all that comes with it, but you do not have to feel obligated to do the recipes that are in there. So I have the recipes printed, and I have the Night Family Cookbook, and I ended up making Bisquick biscuits with jam and butter because my baking was not prepared. So you can truly feel free when you host your tea to do whatever it is. Buy it from the grocery store if that works for you. Customize it. It's meant to just be a fun experience of hanging out with your friends like we're doing here today, playing off of what we hopefully inspire you to do with your Tea for Literacy kit that we have. So we have the Jane Austen Literary Festival here says we do drink tea hot and cold in Louisiana. It can get very hot in Louisiana, so iced tea, I feel like you can totally get away with it there. All right. I also want to let you know that if you are joining us now live, or if you're catching this later, we would love to have you support us in the literacy fundraiser that we're doing. And I have a link dropped in the comments, so you should be able to check that out, or you can go to our, let me actually send it right now. I don't think it dropped in there yet. There we go. There's a link to our foundation website, and from there you can click on.
I'm sorry, Melissa. You've accidentally put a C in there. It's not Jane Austen LFC. That's because you're used to LFC for the community. I understand what you've done, but it's just janeaustenlf.org, and right there at the top of the front page, there's a whole advert, if you like, about the Jane Austen Tea for Literacy, and if you click on there, it takes you through to the platform where you can make a donation. And you can either just make a donation to the platform, or you can actually pick my fundraising page, Caroline Jane Knight. So just search for me and make a donation against mine. It really doesn't matter. Whatever donations are made in the next 24 hours will be counted.
Thank you for rescuing my slip there. And as we have more people joining us, feel free to let us know where you are joining us from in the comments as well. So Caroline, would you like to, if your voice is feeling up to it, go ahead and kick us off a little bit about what we're here for today and a little bit about your history?
Yes. So the Tea for Literacy is a campaign that we launched a couple of years ago. But it is actually a campaign that's sort of been in my mind right from the inception of the foundation, when I started right at the beginning. Because, of course, not only is a tea party something that is so popular within the Jane Austen community anyway. It's something that is so sort of was so part of my life and my childhood at Chawton House. I was born in 1970, so I was lucky enough to get the last 18 years of Chawton House as the Austen Knight family home. When it was, when I go there now, it's same but different, if you know what I mean. So the house that you see now, exactly that was our family home. And it's no secret that the money had run out decades before I was born. I mean, we still had this fabulous house, but we certainly didn't have the money to go with it. And I think it was because of that. I think it was a financial thing that Granny ran a tea room from the Great Hall at the front of Chawton House. And so as a child, that's how I earned my pocket money. So I used to be the person that would go and take the order and then go and, give it to Granny, who'd be in the kitchen, and she'd, make whatever they wanted. As long as what they wanted fitted with what she wanted to make. I have to say, Granny was a woman who was formidable. I mean, she was very, very kind and a very loving grandmother. But she had an air about her that was just, if Granny said that this was what's going to happen, you wouldn't question it. You wouldn't ask her why. That's just what you did. She just had that air of authority about her. So one of the funny things that used to happen in the tea room is, and in those days, it wasn't individual cakes as we get now. People used to make big cakes, and you'd get a slice of cake, little, as I said, all the individual cakes that we now get in sort of tea rooms and things. That's not what it was. As I said, it was all big cakes. So we'd be up early, baking, at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So you had fresh cakes for the tea room for the afternoon. At weekends, it wasn't open during the week. This was a weekend pursuit. But then on the menu, there was not a huge amount of variety. But if you ordered tea and cake, then Granny was going to choose what slice of cake you got. We were not allowed to walk up to the side where there was this really long old refectory table. I'm probably saying that wrong, which is quite a high sort of bench table the whole way along a wall. And all the cakes were laid out. And you'd see these customers sort of longingly looking over, wishing that they could go and choose, but absolutely not. It was Granny's tea room. And I think part of that was because part of it was because she was inviting people into her home. And I think that's how she sort of saw it, if you know what I mean. This was her tea room. This was her, and somehow you were sort of lucky to be there. I don't mean she was incredibly polite to everybody. I don't mean she was sort of rude and she made anybody feel, anything other than welcome. But you were still in her house, and there was no, and very, very different, obviously, to the customer service of today, where really a customer can have whatever they like, can't they? As I said, she was incredibly polite. I don't want to give the impression that she was a rude host, but you did not get to choose your own slice of cake. But luckily, she spent most of her time actually in the kitchen because she was doing all of the cooking and everything. And so you'd sort of wait for her to go and then go up to people and go, if you're quick, go and have a quick look and tell me what you want, and there was sort of this machination going on to, so that people choose their own cake, as I said, but that was just one of Granny's foibles. So it's something that as I said, the growing up, baking and getting ready for the tea room and serving in the tea room. And of course, visitors didn't expect us to be working in the tea room because there was a perception of wealth. There was, how, people that live in a house like Chawton House are going to have money, aren't they? That's an absolute natural assumption. And you're also going to assume that we've got staff and probably quite a few of them, which wasn't the case. So we also, sometimes we were wicked, very lightheartedly, but you'd get visitors in and they'd come into the tea room and they'd sort of in hushed tones say, "Are the Knight family here in today? The Knight family at home?" or whatever they'd say. And I'd sort of cheekily go, "Yes, we are," in a sort of moment of grandeur. And you'd see people, have a moment of sort of panic, as they sort of, it's just not what they were expecting. But no, it was good. It was good. And that's where as I said, where I earned all of my pocket money as a child was in that tea room, and where I heard most about Jane Austen. Because of course, Jane Austen was part of our everyday lives, but as a family, we weren't talking about her every night around the dinner table. Of course, she wasn't literally, every conversation. Whereas in the tea room, Of course it was. So right as a young child, I mean, way before I would have been working in there, I mean, the names Lizzie and Darcy were two names that I don't, you know, I would have known before I could talk. I don't, you know, that they're names that I've always known, because of course they were the first two names that people mentioned when they were talking about Jane Austen. So, and as you say, Night Family Cookbook, which I think I should have a copy here. Oh yeah, this is my working copy actually. So this is the grubby one, because this is actually the one that goes to the kitchen. I've got a good one as well. But the Night Family Cookbook, this is started in the 17th century and then continued. But it's actually, this is a copy of it. But there we go. This is actually a copy. We did or Chawton House did a facsimile copy run. And this is literally the photocopied pages, obviously, of the cookbook. Now, cookbooks back in Jane's time, I mean, as I said, this was started in the 17th century, but then continued by various cooks in the kitchen. Cookbooks back in Jane's time didn't have recipes written in them in the way that we would think of a recipe book now. Because obviously recipe books now are primarily designed to be purchased by other people and for other people, or given to other people, but for other people to pick up that recipe and be able to follow it beginning to end. So it would have lots and lots of instructions in it. I mean, that's what modern recipes are. These recipe books, or these cookbooks back then, were written by the cooks for the cooks in their own kitchen. So they just don't have the same instructions. It'll say things like, cook until done, or it'll just have things in it, and a lot of things that are very in shorthand, and it takes a lot of sort of interpretation. So one of the things we do have in the Tea for Literacy, and I'll quickly explain sort of how this campaign works, is the idea is you sign up as a host, completely free to sign up. If you click on that link and go to our website, and as I said, right at the top of the front page of the website, there is a button for the Tea for Literacy. And if you click there, it's going to take you through to the fundraising platform that we've set this campaign up on. You open yourself a host page for free. It does say, would you like to make a donation in order to start your fundraising total? But that's completely optional. It's up to you whether you want to do that. You then host your tea. You download your free, loads of resources in there. I have to say the team have done a fantastic job. It's all absolutely beautiful, and there's an awful lot of Canva templates and decorations and all sorts of things in there that you can use. You've also got the option of going into, which you'll find a link in there, into our shop. And in our shop, as an option, you can buy the complete Jane Austen Tea for Literacy party pack. And in that party pack are two key things, there's other things, but two key things. One of them is, and I actually have to say, I did this during the pandemic. It was a great pandemic project. Here in Melbourne, we were in lockdown, as I'm sure you all know, for over 10 months. It was a very, very long time to be shut at home. So we were all desperate for things to do. And I took that opportunity to take this Night Family Cookbook, and I cooked probably 50 different recipes from here that were, or tried to interpret 50 different recipes, looking for things for the Tea for Literacy. And I made a full sort of tea menu that would have been, recipes and the things that Jane would have eaten. I mean, this is the cookbook from the family, as I said, that the cooks would have been using when Jane was alive. So you can actually get that entire pack of those recipes, which I have done, with proper instructions. I have, done that interpretation for you, so you can actually sort of follow it. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Melissa. Exactly.
Gorgeous so pictures too that really show you what you're making for each thing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And there's also in that optional pack, there's also a pack of riddles and word games that Jane played, and they're all taken from Jane's letters and from her work, different games and things that she mentions in her work. So as I said, the Tea for Literacy, you can sign up for free. You can host it however you like. You can use your own recipes. You can go and buy things from the shop. If you're like me, you'll invite lots of friends that can bake so that you can share the load. Or, as I said, alternatively, for a more authentic Jane Austen experience, I suppose, then go into our shop, which, as I said, all the links are there, and you can buy, as I said, the complete party pack and get all the authentic recipes, a full sort of menu of authentic recipes, and the full pack, as I said, of authentic games. In the free resources, there are games in there. There's actually the recipe for these macaroons is in there, as I said. So you'll still have games and recipes in the free pack as well. So that's sort of how the Tea for Literacy. As I said, as soon as I set up the foundation, I thought, I had a lot of visions that thankfully mostly have come to fruition, although it's obviously taken years to do it. But as I said, and we all know that, Jane was, a keen lover of tea and had a very keen interest in sponge cake, and enjoyed it very much. So it obviously seemed very aligned. I knew it was something that I thought the community would love to do. As I said, this is a community of people, of course, who love a party, and it would be a fantastic way of us all having fun, whilst raising money for literacy. And that money, we are all volunteers at the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation, myself included. And that means that all of the money that we raise, all of it is spent on, and at the moment it's all being spent on, increasing the literacy work that we do. We've got some fantastic work going on. We've got some fantastic programs, but we want to expand our reach now in terms of the impact that we're making for literacy. And I hope that this is a good way to do it.
And also, I wanted to highlight that we do have the community space now. And if you join the Friends of the Foundation tier as part of the community, you do get the complete pack that you can buy in the shop, but you get that for free if you sign up for the Friends of the Foundation. So you'll see when you access the community, which you can also find on our website, how to get to there, everything else that you'll get as a community member. And then that's immediately available for you to download the complete pack and host your thing there. One of my favorite things about the Tea for Literacy is that you can really get together with people anywhere. I know with working with the foundation, I've met people all over the world, which is so much fun. So it can be a Zoom tea kind of version like we're having here, or you can host it at your house as well, to have your friends come over and have an in-person party with you if you want to have them bake and bring the goodies over for you to enjoy, which is a lot of fun.
Yes, exactly. As you said, in person or virtual, it all works, doesn't it? And actually, in each previous year, yes, we've actually had quite a few virtual parties, which have been great fun. And everybody that hosts will get an exclusive invitation. I'm really looking forward to this, I have to say. We have a great musician who's actually going to do a private concert for us, and that's going to be in July. And it's virtual, but I'll be there in the audience, and so will other members of my family. My niece, Millie Knight, who is living in a cottage on the grounds of Chawton House. So for the last couple of months, there has been the 6th, and she's got a daughter. So the 6th and 7th nieces of Jane Austen are back in Chawton, living in a cottage at Chawton House, which I have to say, it's just so exciting. It certainly is for me. That, as I said, it's our departure wasn't the end. Clearly, as I said, if they're back there. So Millie's going to be watching. She's going to be attending that concert as well, and as my parents will be too. So all of the hosts are going to be invited to join us, as I said, at an absolute private virtual concert where we'll get an opportunity to enjoy a fabulous concert, and obviously have a chat about it and enjoy each other's company. I think there's also, there certainly is also, I think there's also other gifts. I might let you share those, Melissa.
And Laura is actually here, who will be doing our concert for us in the live stream. I saw her name pop up, which is exciting.
Excellent.
So, hello, Laura. The other bonuses that we have is you can receive an ebook copy of one of Heather's amazing books that we have in there available. Heather, do you want to let us know which one it is so I don't say the wrong title?
Yeah, it's called An Affectionate Heart, and it is think of it as like it's a smash up of, if you've read The Blue Castle by Ellen Montgomery and Pride and Prejudice, but you don't have to have read either book. There's a marriage of convenience, and there's someone trying to find happiness while they think they still have the chance. So that is up for grabs too.
I know the Blue Castle is a huge favorite, and it's actually on my shelf because I have so many people that love Austen tell me that that's one of their favorite books from Ellen Montgomery to read. So
Yeah.
and a Green Gables fan, great
Mhm.
crossover to read that. So.
Yeah, it's more of an adult novel than Anne of Green Gables, but the
Right.
style and the lyrical writing, I think, are similar too. So
perfect. And then we also have an ebook copy of Caroline's book, Jane and Me, which I spy on your back shelf behind you. If you want to give us a quick little description of your book.
Yes, so Jane and Me is my memoir. So Jane and Me covers, you know, those 18 years at Chawton House, and I really have tried. I mean, I have to say it's very much written in my words. I mean, I wrote it, but I sort of mean it is, you know, I've written it as I'm literally just sitting down telling you about it, if you know what I mean. And I hope that's sort of how it feels. So in my book, I cover, as I said, that first 18 years at Chawton House, but really, I really try and give people a feel of what Chawton House was as a family home, because it felt very different to it does now. Of course, a private home and a public building are two very different things. And as I said, I really wanted people to just get that flavour and that taste of what day-to-day family life was about. I also cover in Jane and Me the loss of Chawton House in terms of it being our family home. It's obviously still owned by the family, but in terms of it being our home, I wanted to cover that. And I have to say that's actually all I'd intended to do. But sometimes when you write, it's the first book I've ever written, the only book I've ever written, although I'm on my second now. But sometimes the writing just does it, doesn't it? And you're not really in control anymore. And it carried on. And I ended up also writing, I have to say, in quite some detail about the aftermath and about, you know, leaving Chawton was really tough. Or, you know, after 400 years, you know, not being able to sort of keep it as the family home. Was difficult, and I struggled with that. And so I talk at length about that and sort of what happened afterwards. And then what brought me back, you know, why I then 12 years ago had this inspiration about the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation, and I thought it's time. I hadn't actually been involved at all in the Austen community. I hadn't told a soul who I was for 25 years after we left Chawton. But in 2013, all of that changed, and here we are. So that's what Jane and Me is all about, that story.
Lovely. So on top of the concert and then the two books, and then the other bonus that you get for raising $100 is our community members each month get a narrated letter of Jane Austen's, which has been so much fun, and we've really gotten to enjoy her letters coming to life. So you'll get a exclusive to the foundation, never heard by anyone before, letter read, Jane Austen letter that will be sent to you as well. And those are just, we don't focus exclusively on Jane Austen content because we're really about reading and literacy and just a love of reading, but seeing Jane come to life through these letters has been so much fun, I have to say.
I agree, and I've never heard her letters narrated before. Yeah. And like anything, no, I mean, obviously it's great to read things on original text. I like to do both. You know, the original text, you know, that there is something about reading it yourself, but equally when someone else reads it and you kind of, as you said, it really comes to life, doesn't it? And those words, you know, absolutely, I agree that's a fabulous thing actually that happens in the community is the narration of those letters. It really is a treat.
Can we take a quick second and let's talk about the outfits that you guys are wearing? And I do want to let people know that if you are hosting a Tea for Literacy, you do not feel like you have to dress up. This can be casual with your friends, however you want to make the tea your own. But we thought we would have a little bit of fun today and sort of dress up a bit. And Heather and I were discussing that she thinks that, you know, wearing the cap is a good way to go without having to fix your hair every day. We want to make a comeback.
Help me bring it back, everybody, because it was kind of nice not having to
curl. I'm all into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you have a few, I think, Regency outfits, like what goes into wearing it and getting it on and the layers?
I had to start getting ready for this a little earlier than I bet a lot of some of you. There's a lot of layers, I'm not going to lie, but I'm getting better at doing it myself. I've got the gown and then this now the name of it escapes me, but it's this there's a piece of fabric that just kind of covers the neckline, and if the name occurs to me while we're talking,
Is it a fichu?
that's a certain type. Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I don't know if this one is a fichu, but let's go with that so we can
Okay, we'll go with it.
The dress, and it ties under the bust here. This one is drawstring, so I can put it on myself, so I don't have to lace it up in the back. And there's a petticoat that has there's straps, and there's a petticoat underneath that helps give the gown shape. And underneath that is a corset, which I laced myself into, which is a grand time. It laces in the back. So that was tiring. And there's a shift underneath. And now you all know a lot more about my underclothes than you ever needed to know. But it's fun. It's time once you get it all in there. I don't know if anybody can see this. There's like it's a cream fabric, and then there's a little series of little pink dots in different shades. It's supposed to mimic like a block print cotton gown. This was obviously machine done, but going for everybody. Oh, and then the cap, because I tried to curl my hair and it was a disaster. So I just rubbed it under the cap because I'm all, older and matronly. So now I can wear this cap. I'm already married. I'm old, so I don't have to have a little elaborate hair. I can just shove it under this and go about my day. And I love it.
And I see, Caroline, you have the mannequin behind you with a little extra fashion flair going on.
Well, I have to say that's. I mean, I yes, I am in a Regency style dress, but I have to confess, I don't do the authentic what's underneath it and everything else. But absolutely. So what you can see behind me, which I got out last night just for today, this is part of the antique fashion collection that I was given last year. So collector Fiona Baverstock here in Australia, and so an Australian collector, had spent a lot, decades and decades trawling different, and it's antique, it's older than vintage, but, antique fashion fairs and the proper auction houses in the UK. And she amassed an incredible collection of things. And Fiona is now in her 80s and decided that she was certainly never going to exhibit it again. It's only ever been exhibited here in Australia. And so remarkably, she decided last year to give it all to me as a gift to support my charity work for the foundation. And also I raise a bit of money for Chawton House. So which is just obviously absolutely, mind-blowing that she believed in what we're doing, that much, in an incredibly touching gesture. This is one of my favorite pieces. And you've got, this top piece is a different, that's a separate piece to the dress. But it's, it's in, I suppose, what we'd sort of call a taffeta. It's a taffeta style material. And I just think it's beautiful. And it's just in absolute mint condition. It's so, it honestly, it looks like it could have been made a couple of years ago, except, and I don't know, this might be too much information. And I suppose it does show something about the day. Under the arms, the armpits are really stained. And that would be obviously because they wouldn't have had deodorant like we do. I'd never thought about that. Sometimes when you get the genuine stuff, it actually opens up a whole sort of load of, information and questions that or things that you just don't necessarily think about. So I know it's been worn and loved. It's not brand new. It's absolutely been worn and loved. And as I said, because you've got stains under both armpits. But other than that, it is a beautiful, beautiful piece and much more authentic than what I'm in. But
I'm trying to think of which Austen character does it make me feel like would wear it. Do you have any thoughts, or Heather?
So Fiona actually had curated the entire collection into Austen characters, and Jane and her mother, Mrs. Austen, obviously. And this one, she actually had it. There's actually, and it's fabulous, a green Spencer jacket that goes over the top, which looks really nice. Together, the green and this sort of, it really brings out this sort of goldness of this. And she had that as Mrs. Darcy, because it's actually slightly later than 1813. I think we're on about 1818, 1820. So we are actually, I mean, we are actually slightly outside of Jane's lifetime, but it's still in the right period. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get that picky about it. You know, it's certainly of the right era, and it's absolutely beautiful. So she had it imagined as Elizabeth Bennet, you know, 5 years after her and Darcy had got married, and Elizabeth was in these terribly grand, you know, grand and luscious clothes. So that's how she had curated it.
I love it. It's really funny how we can visualize Jane Austen characters so much to even be discussing what outfits we think that they would be wearing, because we have such a strong opinion of who they are. And it just shows how much personality she wrote into the characters, that we can feel them come to life and have a wardrobe that goes with them.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And you're right, for fictional characters, we could actually talk for hours, couldn't we, about whether or not Elizabeth actually wore something like this or not, which, as you said, yes, it's because these people do feel very real, don't they? Very real.
Absolutely. Heather, when you're writing characters, do you have a wardrobe going through your head for different Austen characters?
I mean, sometimes. Usually that's not all what I focus on, but in general, sure, you want to know what kind of clothes they're wearing, and, you know, what is the weather like, and are they going to have to go outside? So those are the kind of things I end up thinking about, not so much what color and what's this person's style, but okay, they're going to be going outside, so they would have this clothes or these boots and all that. So yeah, you could have discussions forever about what you think this character is going to be wearing versus that character, and how decked out are they going to be? Are they going to be a little more plain, or are they going to be bejeweled? So it's fun. Austen's characters are they're so relatable and timeless that, like you said, we can chat here for hours about what we think this character might have been wearing. And isn't that kind of fascinating to think about, that we love them so much that we care about, you know, what color gown might they have worn on this occasion? So
and something else I found interesting about having or about seeing a collection like this that's genuine, let alone having it, is actually what a different array of actual styles you've got from that sort of time. Because Hollywood has led us all to believe that everyone kind of dressed in one particular sort of, you know, the typical Elizabeth Bennet dress that we'd all sort of think of. Whereas in truth, they weren't all cut like that. I mean, that was, you know, and I'm not just talking about things that were made earlier that people were still wearing, because obviously in practice, many people, unlike now, it wasn't disposable fashion back then. And somebody, you know, a woman could have been wearing the same dress for best dress, say, she could have had that for 30 years. So of course there were people in practice that were wearing things, you know, that were from different eras. But there was also, just as now, as we have you know, there'll be throwbacks now, won't they, of 80s fashion and 90s fashion and 60s fashion today, you know, and people will wear what might be considered, you know, influenced by sort of a vintage or a retro sort of feel in various decades, whatever it is. Well, exactly the same was happening then. And one of the things, I haven't got it out, but one of the things that I have is it's sort of like a bib collar that's really big and stands up that you'd put in something. And it's a throwback to the Elizabethan era, which in the Regency time had a revival. People had these sort of, you know, added touches that were from the Elizabethan era. So actually in that time, you know, and the collection would be 1770 to about 1830 is the what Fiona sort of, you know, called the Austen collection, as said, had curated in that way. And in that time period, as I said, there's an enormous array of different kind of styles and accessories, which I found really interesting. I don't know what I'd thought. I hadn't really thought about it that hard. But as I said, obviously, when you just watch the movies and things, you do get the impression, don't you, that you know, we all think we know what we're going to see, and that's not what it is, which I found very interesting.
It's really funny to see that, you know, we talk about, oh, it's going to recycle in fashion, you know, in 20 years it'll be trendy again, and that hasn't changed in hundreds of years. They've still been recycling fashion.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, let's talk a little bit about tea in Austen time period. And Heather, since you have such strong feelings about tea, can you give us a little insight into it?
Now, I just don't want you to heat your tea in the microwave. Those are my strong feelings. Other than that, just, you know, have a good time. But well, drinking tea and making tea, using tea things, Austen mentions that in all of her works. You know, you've got Catherine Morland in the upper rooms who's embarrassed that she doesn't have a gentleman to bring them tea, and you've got Fanny Price's sister who's sent to the kitchen to get a servant to put the water on for tea. So by the time Austen was writing, like, tea drinking was a daily part of daily social life, like in Bath in the upper rooms and in cheap rooms in Portsmouth. So it was, so we can do, I mean, I could talk tea. So do you want to talk history of tea? You want to talk how it was made? Like, how nerdy do we want to get?
Give us a little tea history.
Okay, so tea was brought to England in the early 17th century by the East India Company. It was first introduced to more aristocratic circles and was popularized by the wife of Charles II, and then it moved down the social ladder from there. There were two types of tea that were popular. There's a bohea tea and green tea. They're both from China. You might hear people talk about Indian tea, but at this time, it was tea from the East India Company. There weren't Indian tea plantations until the 1820s, so everything would have been from China, because the East India Company had a monopoly on importing tea, which affect the price. So we could talk about tea prices too. How nerdy do we want to get? So bohea tea was the most popular. There was a black tea, but we would think of it more like an oolong tea. It wasn't oxidized for as long as we might think a black tea is now. It was a low quality tea. The Chinese were happy to dump it on us, but
really?
It was.
I did not know that.
Yeah. But there were several types of bohea and green tea. You could buy what blends you like.
Because bohea isn't a word that we would know.
It's an anglicized version of the region in China it came from. I think it was the Wuyi Mountains, and it kind of became
right. So that's an area in China. That's where that word comes from.
It was the region that it came from.
Right.
Yeah.
So who decided that, like, was the tea just brought over? They were like, we've got all this extra tea, let's just give it to these people. They'll drink anything. Like, how did it kind of...
I don't know all those details. I know that the East India Company they had the monopoly on it, and they sold it. It was popular in Portugal and France before it came to England. But I don't know what their relationship was with the Chinese, how they started to think, like, oh, maybe we can make some money shipping this stuff all the way around the world back to Western Europe. I don't know, but maybe
you'd think it would be no different from spices that were coming in that time. Right. There was and it was a mixture of obviously, English people, if you like, who had gone to those places and brought some goodies back. So they were obviously bringing back, as you said, things from faraway lands that were exotic or that were different. But alternatively, you also would get and I actually don't know whether this would be true of tea, but certainly in other in spices and other things, it could also happen because sometimes it was those nationalities that would have been working on the ships or would have been, and so they might have. I mean, now having said that, the kind of people that would be working on ships weren't obviously didn't have any money, so right. Who knows?
Yeah.
You've obviously got us going, or the English going there, haven't you? And you've got a little bit of, as I said, there could have been people from that nationality that for whatever reason had a tiny bit of their favourite tea in their pocket. I guess could have happened, but we can only speculate.
Right.
Maybe somebody knows. Maybe somebody can fill in that gap.
Anyone in the chat wants to jump in.
Absolutely.
Great.
Now, is it true? I read in some stories, and I always wonder, is it fictionalized? Maybe that they would sometimes dry the tea leaves out and resell them out the back door for a second usage. And I think, do I remember that Jane was in charge of the tea for the household? Because I know tea was expensive and kept under lock and key.
Yes, it would have been still here. I'm gonna nerd out. So this is my giant coffee table book on tea caddies, because this is the kind of person I am. This is what I think is fun, right? Okay. So yeah, it would have been in containers like these that were locked, and they had a hinged lid and compartments inside to hold your types of tea.
Oh, and so you get tea caddies.
Sorry, I was going to say, you get tea caddies coming up on the Antiques Roadshow and stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
And they often have in them, as you said, sometimes they have different compartments, don't they?
So it could be like
types of tea.
inside.
As you said. Can I just give a shout out before we sort of before we move on? First of all, I want to just make a comment on the fact that Anna looks like she's baking a very interesting cake with chocolate, mayonnaise, craisins, which are cranberry, aren't they? Little dried cranberries, so they're like cranberry raisins, and liquor 43. I don't know what that is. But chocolate, mayonnaise, craisins, and liquor 43 sounds incredibly interesting as a cake. I also just wanted to remind everybody that, I mean, obviously, as well as just enjoying talking with each other and talking to you all, we are absolutely here, obviously, to share the tea for literacy with you, but also to raise money. Excuse me. And as I said, all of the money that we raise will be spent on the expansion of our literacy work. And in order to make a donation, if you just go to our website, janeaustenllf.org, and at the top of that first page, you will find a button to go through to the Tea for Literacy, and you can either just make a donation just to the whole campaign. That's absolutely fine. We'll pick it up. Or you can click on my name, look for Caroline Jane Knight, and make a donation towards my fundraising total. It really doesn't matter, whatever you prefer to do. But as I said, I just want to give a pump for the fundraising, because, as I said, that is what we're here for. Or certainly that's what the whole campaign's for, as well as having fun together, is to raise money for literacy projects. And a good example, if I can just quickly give it, of a type of literacy project that we would support. So as an organisation, you will have seen that we run a lot of sort of online literacy work, like or literacy activities like our writing competition. The writing competition is run entirely by volunteers, and we actually do that without spending any money at all, which is fabulous. So those sorts of activities don't cost us money. But what we do is we actually fund literacy programs in developing communities. So all the money that we get is spent on, and those literacy programs, we support something called Anganwari centres in India, and they are the centres where, say, 4-year-olds go while their mums are at work. You know, the mums they're like daycare centres, if you like. And we fund the World Read to Kids program, which basically gets a whole sort of literacy kit and teacher training, and turns those Anganwari centres into actually early learning centres, rather than just a babysitting centre, if you understand what I mean. It actually kind of turns them into a learning opportunity, which is so important for those children. I've been there myself. I've seen the work. I've been to the Anganwari centres, and we genuinely are making the difference between those children, you know, being able to connect with the world and plan a future. And when I was in India, one of the most impactful things that somebody said to me, and this was through an interpreter, and I was talking to the mother of one of these kids, and her entire ambition was that her kid was educated well enough to be able to get a job inside and not to have to spend their life outside. And when you realise that those are the stakes that people are playing for, do you know what I mean? It literally is that different in their life. It was, I mean, as you can tell, I mean, this is why I certainly do what we do. And it's those kids, we are making that sort of difference potentially in their lives, you know, by giving them that early start. Because what in practice happens, if you don't do that, is many of these impoverished kids turn up at school at 5 years old, because everyone has a place at school in India. Of course, it's you know, it's a country that does that. But if you turn up at school at 5 years old and you have never, ever seen a book, ever, you've never seen the written word, nobody's ever read a story to you, and you have no comprehension at all that this black squiggly stuff says something. If you've never been introduced to that and you don't know that, when you start at school, you are so far behind. You know, you're so far behind in terms of just the simple concepts. Those kids never thrive. They, you know, or they certainly struggle to thrive. So it's things like that is what we're here for. And as I said, you can be absolutely assured from me and the team that every penny we raise or every cent we raise is spent very, very wisely. I absolutely understand my responsibility and the organisation's responsibility to spend all of your money very, very wisely. And we do our very best to do that. So please, if you can, as I said, get onto the fundraising page and make a donation. And all of the donations that we receive in the next 24 hours are going to go into a draw. And what's the lucky winner going to win?
So we'll be giving away some community book plates that are special to the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation, and we have special ones for the community. We have digital bookmarks that we will be giving away, and then one grand prize winner will be winning an audiobook of the complete novels of Jane Austen, read by our ambassador, Alison Larkin.
Great, which is absolutely fabulous. I have to say that complete novels of Jane Austen by Alison is absolutely my favourite. Personally, my favorite Austen recording. So I've just learnt from the chat that Liquor 43 is from Spain. So it's obviously a Spanish. I'm assuming, given that LICOR, it sounds like like liqueur, doesn't it? So or liquor. So I'm assuming it's alcohol. But that's what it is.
I feel like with those ingredients, it has to be good because it seems like such an interesting combination. There's no other option than it to be amazing.
Well, I have to say, Anna, when you've done that, can you please post a picture of it on the, if you could post a picture on the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation page, that would be great. I'd be very interested to see what that cake looks like.
Well, shall we have a little bit of fun? And we, as you mentioned earlier in the packet, you get some games that you can play at your tea. And it truly is just a time to get together with your friends. And I think all of us, as you were saying, like we've all had experiences as readers where books made an impact in our life. And we have those moments where, it brings friends into your life. You accomplish something in school, you have a teacher that really touched you because they helped you learn how to read, and we all get this sense of importance behind reading and what it can do to a child's life. And that's why we're here, and that's why hopefully, if you decide to host a tea for literacy and you get together with your friends, you'll bond over just the joy of bringing literacy into children's lives. It makes me really proud to be with the foundation every time I think about that, because I know how much reading changed my life, and my connection with my friends about Jane Austen too truly has made a difference as well, not just reading. But with your Tea for Literacy kit, with either the free kit or the complete bag, we have some games for you to enjoy. And as Caroline mentioned, they are some of the games that Jane mentions in her books and would have played herself. So I thought we could play a little bit on here for some fun. And one of them is a word scramble. Now, nobody panic. Is there going to be nice and easy word scrambles? We're not going to put anyone on the spot, but I will put the scramble on the screen. We'll do a little bit of chatting. You can drop your answers in the comment section. And this is purely for fun. Don't feel any pressure. And then we will see how we do. I cannot see the comments when I'm sharing the banner. So Caroline and Heather, if you can kind of let me know how people are doing, and then we will move on from there. So our first word scramble here is on the screen. I must admit, I don't know how you guys are. When I look at word scrambles, my brain panics immediately. My husband and son love them. I just scramble. And then I think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to figure out what this word is. But Caroline, is there any history about the games that you can maybe share with us that you have that we have in the literacy pack? I believe you picked them.
Oh no, I'm going to absolutely confess that the games were put together by the absolutely brilliant Hazel Mills, of course, who's the absolute font of all knowledge. And so when we originally and we add to the pack every year. Every year we're adding new games and new things. But Heather, when we were first putting it together a couple of years ago, did a fabulous job of pulling together a huge array of different games and things, some of which were mentioned, as I said, in Jane's letters, and others. And I think there's quite a lot that are from Emma. In their games and things that are mentioned. So Heather's then done the research and found out exactly what that game was, and obviously reproduced it for us. So as I say, I have to confess actually that it will not confess. I proudly say that Heather, that's all Heather's work, and jolly good it is too. And there's some great fun things in there. And it's obviously it's not only are they fun games, it's a great insight into actually how they would entertain themselves, how they would, we all live in such worlds of electricity and the internet and TV and everything else, don't we? That we, we forget that they didn't have any of that, When it got dark, it was dark, and you know, there was none of that kind of entertainment. So of course they had to entertain themselves, and I you know, I played a couple of the games, and it's lovely, actually. It's lovely to imagine,
Yeah.
you know, Jane and Cassandra and Martha, and you know, playing those games together.
Hazel is fantastic. She does so much research, and she knows her Austen history inside and out. So I love the games that she came up with.
Yeah, so I did the cooking and she did the games. Is why it's how we put that pack together.
And it's really interesting to note that there are still so many apps with word games. So it has not fallen out of style at all. It's still very popular. People love their scrambles and crosswords and everything.
Yes, there are a few guesses in the chat. You have some winners, April and Heartland Amazon and Rosa, all books.
Books, perfect. And I just saw the time, so I will speed this up and we'll get through a few. I'll do one more word scramble here. So we have a 2-word word scramble. Go ahead and leave your guesses down below. And we talk a lot about how they entertained themselves even back then, like talking about no electricity. And you often mention how Jane loved to read her books out loud to the family, and it was an activity that they experienced with each other.
Absolutely. And of course, reading books out loud was very, very common. I mean, is a form of entertainment, as you said, because what do you do as a family of a, you know, I don't know, on an eve or an afternoon when you've got some, you know, you've got some time, and as I said, there's no Netflix to switch on, so of course people entertain themselves, and it very much meant that actually, and of course in some circumstances things would have been read aloud because not everyone could read, and that, you know, in Jane's time less than 50% of women in England were literate. So, of course, you know, it would also be read aloud for that. But it meant that Jane's work, I mean, she wrote with that in mind. And there would have absolutely been the expectation that her work would have been read aloud by other people to their friends and family, certainly. And talking about games, one of the, I'm going to, digress just for a second. But one of the games that we know Jane... Well, we know the family were playing then, that we played throughout my childhood was Snapdragon. Which isn't a word game at all. Snapdragon is you know, a fiery thing that you put your hands into to pull out firing raisins. But that was or flaming raisins. But yes, that was something that we still played, which I can imagine them doing. And I've seen it recreated a couple of times in movie land. The latest Sanditon 3 had a scene of Snapdragon in, and as other things have done, and I have to say they get it wrong every single time. Nobody knows what that's like. One day, and if health and safety would allow me, I would take Snapdragon around the world and show everyone how it's supposed to be played. But unfortunately, putting your hands into flames isn't really something the insurance company's going to cover. So I can't. Unfortunately.
I just always wonder who came up with this idea. Like someone was very bored one day. We've got fire and we've got flaming raisins.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you do it properly, it doesn't hurt at all. I mean, it's alcohol that's burning, so it's blue flame. It's not hot. It's you know. I mean, of course, you can't just put your hand in and leave it. But if you're quick and you get those raisins in your mouth really quickly, I mean, it looks like everyone's eating fire, which is you know, pretty spectacular. But you don't burn yourself. It's all right.
So our answer for that one is teacup. Was the word scramble. So hopefully some people got it in the comments there. And then talking about games, we'll do one quick quiz question. And what games does Catherine Morland enjoy playing as a young girl? This one was really interesting to me. I will confess, I did not know the answer to this one until I was doing a bit of digging. If anybody has any guesses, go ahead and put them in the comments. And then we won't take too long for this one. But it was cricket and baseball. And as I was reading, it was not the baseball that we typically think of, at least here in the U.S. Right. I don't know if there's a different version of baseball. There's
certainly not a different version. I mean, there must have been, but there certainly now isn't a different version of baseball that English people would be familiar with. I mean, baseball, is the American. But that's interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? I'm going to look into that.
As I'm sure I know happens to Heather when you're doing research, just literally the word baseball being mentioned, it sent me on a 30-minute research. It's so much fun to have. I will give a little, I know we're getting close on our time here, a little bit about what we do in the community, and then Caroline, if you want to wrap us up with one last bit about the Tea for Literacy. But I just want to mention, when we were talking about reading, and you mentioned taffeta for the fabric on the dress in the back, A Dress of Violet Taffeta is actually the book that we're reading for our May book club in the community this month. I just finished it. It is an amazing book. So if you enjoy reading with other people and you want to join a community, we are reading that in there. And then for free in the community, we do a monthly reading challenge. These are so much fun. They are very generic prompts, so you can customize it to whatever genre it is that you like to read and loosely interpret this how you like. But we alternate between the challenges each month. We have written prompts and we do bingo prompts, and it's just meant to maybe have you browse your shelves, go to the library, see if you find a new book, something that's been sitting there, and encourage you to read along with a community of other people. And as we're also together supporting our literacy efforts for the foundation as well. So Caroline, I will hand it over to you to wrap us up for the day.
Thank you, and thank you everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see so many of you here and joining in. So the Tea for Literacy campaign runs throughout May and June. Having said that, the fundraising platform will stay open until the end of September. And I know already that a couple of people have made contact and say, is it okay if I run my party in July? Because, you know, whatever, of course it is. That's absolutely fine. I mean, we're going to be doing all of our activity throughout May, June. But as I said, the fundraising platform will stay open until the end of September. So if you would like to obviously have a party after that, then obviously go ahead. It is, I mean, I have to say, we've had an absolutely extraordinary response this year. There's going to be a lot of parties. I'm not going to say yet because the numbers are still going, and we'll make an announcement at the end. But there's going to be a lot of parties going on, which is extremely exciting. And as I said, it's a great opportunity for us to come together as a community, and in Jane Austen's name, you know, let's all have some fun and raise some money for literacy. And we absolutely have the ability. I think, you know, we could easily fund 2 or 3 new Anganwari centres out of this campaign, and that's another 130 kids across 3 of them, and that would be another 130 children that we really are giving them the chance. As I said, we are giving them the chance to make such a fundamental difference in their lives. I mean, as I said, when you really get into it, the difference that reading makes in our lives, you know, we tend to think about the enjoyment, the, you know, yes, the enrichment it brings to us, because we kind of take it for granted a bit, don't we? Of course we do. We're all taught it, you know, from a very, very young age. But the work we do really is, as I said, making the difference between whether a child gets to work inside or out for the rest of their lives. And that is such a fundamental thing that I really hope that you all join me and us. And huge thank you, Melissa, for organising this event. Huge thank you, Heather, for joining us and for giving us some fascinating information about the tea. And yes, please do join us. Do join in the campaign. Make a donation today. Host your own tea party. Go to someone else's. But as I said, it's. I hope that you enjoy the campaign and that you've enjoyed today. And thank you very much.
And the easiest way to find all of the information is on our website. It is janeaustenlf.org. And you can see everything for the Tea for Literacy right there. It'll direct you to where you need to get to go.
Lovely.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.